We all remember the excitement of launching our favorite game and being greeted by this iconic logo. Once a symbol of quality and innovation, it represented one of the most respected studios in the gaming industry, but fast forward to 2025 and that reputation is a distant memory. So what happened? How did this beloved game studio manage to collapse on itself and ruin their reputation in such a short period of time? Let's dive into the story of Ubisoft's fall from grace and uncover the events that caused it to become one of the most hated game studios in the world. To put things into perspective, let's start with a bit of history. Ubisoft is a French game publishing company founded in 1986 by 5 brothers who saw an opportunity in the growing software development business. Just a year later, in 1987, Ubisoft would go on to release their first game, Zombie, an icon-driven action-adventure game where the player controls 4 characters tasked with surviving in a zombie-infested shopping mall. The game was heavily inspired by George A. Romero's 1978 film Dawn of the Dead, and it's still debated whether or not this game was the predecessor to the 2012 Zombie U. While Ubisoft's first game can be considered a success, selling over 5,000 copies in the first month, it wouldn't be until 1995 when Ubisoft would become a truly recognizable name in the industry by releasing one of their most iconic games, Rayman. But the golden age of Ubisoft would still be decades away, and in the years leading up to it, Ubisoft released dozens of new franchises that would go on to become established household names like Splinter Cell, Far Cry, and Assassin's Creed. Now, despite their growing success, Ubisoft's journey was far from smooth sailing. Throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, the company faced a lot of competition from other gaming giants like EA and Activision. However, Ubisoft's ability to innovate was enough to set them apart. One of their standout innovations came in 2003 with the release of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. This action-adventure game not only revived the beloved franchise, but also introduced a groundbreaking mechanic like time reversal, earning critical acclaim and solidifying Ubisoft's reputation for creating immersive experiences. By the mid-2000s, Ubisoft had truly ascended to an industry giant, with Splinter Cell, launched in 2002, setting a new standard for stealth action games. But perhaps the company's most iconic moment came in 2007 with the release of Assassin's Creed. What began as a spin-off concept for Prince of Persia quickly evolved into a franchise of its own, combining historical settings with unique narrative structure. And as Ubisoft continued to grow, they didn't shy away from expanding into new territories. The company began acquiring studios worldwide, establishing a strong global presence. And by the 2010s, Ubisoft had firmly established itself as one of the industry's most influential developers. However, as the 2010s progressed, cracks began to form in Ubisoft's seemingly unshakable foundation. See, while the company continued to release highly anticipated games, a pattern of repetitive gameplay, bloated open-world designs, and reliance on yearly releases began to wear thin on players. Franchises like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Tom Clancy's, once praised for the innovation, started to feel repetitive, with critics accusing Ubisoft of prioritizing quantity over quality. In 2014, Ubisoft faced one of its first major controversies with the release of Assassin's Creed Unity. The game launched in a buggy, unfinished state with countless technical issues ranging from graphical glitches to game-breaking crashes. The backlash was swift, and Unity became a symbol of Ubisoft's growing tendency to rush games to the market. Although the company issued apologies and patches, the damage to their reputation was already done. Another problem looming over the studio was Ubisoft's increasing reliance on microtransactions and live service models. While those practices became widespread in the industry at the time, Ubisoft faced criticism for implementing them in single-player focused games, creating a perception that their titles were more about monetization than delivering a complete experience. As the controversies piled up, Ubisoft's games began to reflect the turmoil behind the scenes. Delays, uninspired releases, and an over-reliance on established formulas led to declining sales and lowering player interest. New IPs like Hyperscape, a battle royale game released in 2020, failed to capture an audience, while anticipated sequels like Watch Dogs Legion and Far Cry 6 were met with lukewarm reception. And while industry trends began to outpace Ubisoft's approach, competitors like Sony and Microsoft invested heavily in unique narrative-driven experiences and high-quality exclusives, while Ubisoft struggled to innovate. Among the many struggles Ubisoft faced during this time, one project stood out as a symbol of their declining reputation: Skull and Bones. Announced at E3 2017, the game promised to build on the popular naval combat mechanic introduced in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. The initial reveal generated excitement, with fans eager to see Ubisoft expand on the formula that made Black Flag stand out in the Assassin's Creed franchise. But as the years passed, Skull and Bones slowly faded from the spotlight. Development issues plagued this project almost from the start. What was initially envisioned as a multiplayer-focused pirate experience evolved into an open-world live service game, leaving even Ubisoft's internal teams unclear about the game's direction. By the late 2010s, delays became the norm for Skull and Bones. Originally planned to release in 2018, the game missed its target year after year as Ubisoft struggled to meet expectations. Each delay was accompanied by vague promises of improvement, but behind the scenes, the project was reportedly caught in a cycle of poor leadership and shifting priorities. Making matters worse, Skull and Bones became entangled in external pressures. See, the game was partially funded by the Singapore government, requiring Ubisoft to fulfill specific measures to avoid financial penalties. This added a layer of urgency to an already troubled development process, further complicating efforts to steer the project back on course. When Skull and Bones re-emerged in the public eye with new trailers and gameplay previews, the reception was lukewarm at best. Many players criticized the lack of innovation, with the game appearing to offer little beyond repetitive naval combat and grind-heavy progression systems. What once seemed like a spiritual successor to Black Flag now felt like a watered-down live service experiment, with fans questioning whether the game was worth the wait. Despite Ubisoft's repeated assurances that Skull and Bones was still a priority, the game's reputation continued to deteriorate. The numerous delays, combined with growing skepticism from the gaming community, turned it into a running joke, a sort of a cautionary example of development hell. But after countless delays and broken promises, Skull and Bones finally launched in 2024. Players had high hopes, and understandably so, since Ubisoft had proudly called it their first quadruple A game. However, the reality was far from what fans envisioned. Instead of delivering a groundbreaking experience, Ubisoft seemed to use the quadruple A label as an excuse to raise the game prices to $80, which might have been the main reason behind the game's historically low player numbers, where on some platforms like Steam, the game could barely pull more than 2,000 players at release. However, the trouble for Ubisoft doesn't end there, because the company's troubles extended to other projects, including one of their most ambitious ventures to date, Star Wars Outlaws. Announced in 2023, Outlaws was presented as the first ever open-world game set in the Star Wars universe. The game promised players the chance to live out their space mercenary fantasies as Kay Vess, a scoundrel navigating the galaxy's criminal underworld. With Ubisoft Massive, the game studio behind The Division, expectations were understandably high. The announcement trailer showcased noticeably mediocre visuals, but the fans were still cautiously optimistic because this could be Ubisoft's chance to prove they were still capable of delivering a truly groundbreaking experience. But as more details emerged, cracks began to show. One of the first red flags was the gameplay reveal at Ubisoft Forward 2023. While the open-world concept looked promising on the surface, many players noted that the mechanics felt overly familiar, borrowing heavily from Ubisoft's established formula. The open-world map was dense with icons, side quests, and resource collection, a design choice that had drawn criticism in games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Far Cry 6. So instead of feeling fresh and exciting, Outlaws looked like yet another iteration of the Ubisoft template, now with a Star Wars coat of paint. Instead of feeling like a vibrant, lived-in universe, Outlaws felt like a checklist of generic activities scattered across planets. And once the game finally launched in 2024, the player skepticism was reflected in the embarrassingly low player numbers, with the all-time peak being below 2,500 concurrent players, which is a historical low for a company of this size. But as Ubisoft grappled with the challenges posed by Star Wars Outlaws, another storm was brewing around the corner, this time with the upcoming game Assassin's Creed Shadows. Initially scheduled for release on November 15, 2024, Assassin's Creed Shadows faced its first delay, pushing the launch to February 14, 2025, with Ubisoft citing the need for additional polish. In January 2025, the company announced a second delay, moving the release date to March 20, 2025 to provide developers with more time to implement changes and address feedback. Adding to these delays is a significant controversy surrounding one of the game's protagonists, Yasuke, a historical figure of African origin who served as a samurai in Japan. The inclusion of Yasuke has sparked heated debates within the gaming community, with some critics arguing that his portrayal is historically inaccurate and accusing Ubisoft of pandering to modern audiences, while others defended the choice, highlighting Yasuke's documented presence in Japanese history. The controversy intensified as discussions about representation were brought up, leading to harassment and threats directed at the game's developers. Ubisoft has stood by its creative decisions, with the game director stating that Yasuke was chosen to allow players to discover Japan through the eyes of a foreigner. And to add to the growing list of problems surrounding this game, the historical inaccuracy was severe enough to warrant a response from the Japanese government, saying that Ubisoft should be careful handling content that violates public order and morals. In response to the backlash and to improve the game's reception, Ubisoft has taken several measures, including cancelling the Season Pass and offering refunds to pre-order customers, in hope that these actions, along with the additional development time, will address the concerns and deliver a game that meets the high expectations of its fanbase. And that brings us to current day, with Ubisoft now facing significant financial challenges that have led to widespread speculation about its future. The company's financial health has been under scrutiny, with reports indicating a substantial increase in debt. As of late 2024, Ubisoft's debt stood at $1.1 billion, a sharp rise from $880 million in 2023. This escalating debt, combined with underperforming sales and repeated project delays, has raised concerns about the company's uncertain future. In response, Ubisoft has been exploring various strategic options, like the founders and major shareholders of the company have reportedly been in discussions with potential investors including Tencent, and a buyout is being considered as a way to stabilize the company's finances and fend off any potential hostile takeovers. With Tencent, already a significant shareholder in Ubisoft, has expressed interest in increasing its stake to gain greater influence over the company's operations. These developments have caused volatility in Ubisoft's stock performance, with stock prices having dropped by more than 50% over the past year due to investor concerns about the company's direction and its financial difficulties. Ubisoft is also taking internal measures to address its challenges. The company has delayed several major projects, such as previously mentioned Assassin's Creed Shadows, to allow for additional development time and improve the chances of better sales upon release. In addition, Ubisoft has hired financial advisors to explore options such as asset sales, restructuring, and other strategies to navigate through this turbulent period. So let me know what you think about the current situation surrounding Ubisoft. And what is your opinion on the company now that their public image has been deteriorated beyond recognition? I've ran a poll on my YouTube community tab, and 92% of people say they now have a negative opinion on Ubisoft, as well as certain viewers explicitly expressing their hopes of Ubisoft shutting down. And with that, I want to thank you for watching this video up to this point. If you like the content that I post, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an upload, and like this video to tell the algorithm it should show it to more people. You can also find my links to my other social media in the description of this video, where I'm active most of the time when I'm not making videos. And if you like my content to the point you want to support me financially, you can visit my donation link or my channel sponsor Poggers. Both allow me to invest more time and money into my content, giving you a better experience. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.